Today, I want to show you how to set up what I believe is the greatest mix trick, the greatest technique I've ever come across and that I've ever developed for mixing overheads on drums. This is a serious game changer for me, and I hope it is for you too. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Like I said, this was a real game changer for me, and it only became possible within a single plugin with the release of the FabFilter Pro Q4. I was doing kind of some versions of this using multiple other plugins, like 3 and 4 different plugins to get this to work, but now I get to do it all inside Pro Q4. So I want to show you how to set it up, what it is, what the point of it is. And obviously we will listen to some sound examples of before and afters. Now, the first thing that I want to explain before we jump straight into this is there are a few problems that I'm trying to solve on like every overhead on every drum kit I ever mix. It seems like they all have it, to varying degrees, of course. There's always some harshness between like 2,500 hertz and like 5K. There's always some interesting, weird harshness with the cymbals, the crashes, the chinas, etc. There's always some real boxiness in the like 400-ish hertz range for the snare drum, and there's always, the snare drum always sounds kind of thin, and I like really thick snares. So I always want to boost whatever that fundamental is of the snare drum. Usually it's somewhere between like 180 and 250 hertz. I like to boost that to get more thump out of the snare drum from the overheads. But the problem was always, as soon as I'm cutting 2.5K, the overheads stop sounding as open, and the snare drum starts sounding congested and closed off because all that openness lives in that like 2.5K to 5K range. And if I just cut out some of that 400 hertz boxiness from the snare drum in the overheads, then it starts making the overheads sound even more harsh because that's where a lot of the warmth from the overheads lives. And so developing this technique was purely about how do I soften the harshness of the cymbals, get rid of the boxiness of the snare drum, make the snare drum thicker so that way when I push the fader up of the overheads, I can push the fader up a lot higher and it still sound incredibly natural. Even if I'm using full samples on the drum kit, it still sounds much more natural because I can get much more overheads in the mix without it sounding harsh, without it sounding boxy, without it sounding thin. Okay, so let's just jump right into this and let me show you. So here is what these overheads sound like in a section of the song where there's some crashes going on. Now this was tracked all band in a room, so you can hear the bleed of the guitars, the bass guitar, the vocal, right through the drum kit, which I absolutely love. So this is a very live feeling record that I'm working on right now. But anyway, so the first thing that we're gonna do with Pro Q4 is we're going to bring in some spectral dynamics to get rid of that harshness in the crashes and the chinas. So we're gonna hold Control Option Shift. We're gonna go somewhere about 2,500 hertz, and we're just gonna pull this down. We're gonna switch this to a 24 dB per octave slope. Then we're gonna go somewhere up around, I don't know, 6K, and we're gonna do the same thing. Option, Shift, pull down, and then we're gonna change this to a 24 dB per octave slope. I like 24 dB per octave because it kind of feels like it puts the two filters together. Now, the reason why I use 2 separate ones here is because the crashes are usually in a higher frequency range than the chinas. Or if someone has a smaller crash cymbal and a larger crash cymbal, they usually live in 2 separate frequency ranges. So then the next thing we want to do is we want to open the expert tab here on both of these, and we're going to change the density to be just a little bit finer so it's a little bit more specific of the frequencies it's adjusting. We're going to slow the attack down just a little bit on both of these as well, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to catch the snare drum with the spectrodynamics. We only want to catch the crashes. So then we'll go over here to the other filter and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Slow it down a little bit, do it a little bit more finer, and then let's listen, and I'm going to play with some thresholds and set this up. Right there, did you hear how much different that other crash cymbal was, or china, whatever it was? So we want to center this lower filter around that cymbal, which is somewhere up in the 3,500 hertz range. And then we're going to go just a little bit higher on the higher filter. A little bit higher still. Let's bring a little bit of a high shelf in just to open it up a little bit. We're catching a little snare drum as he plays harder. So that's pretty good on that lower filter. Still catching a little bit of snare drum. All right, I'll take that. So we're barely catching any snare drum. We're catching the hi-hat. We're catching all of the crash cymbals. So I'll take that. So I brought in a high shelf just to open it back up a little bit. The next thing I want to look at is the boxiness of the snare drum. So if we go to the beginning of the song here, and the beginning is just kick, snare, hat, so we can really focus on the snare drum. So we listen to this. Now, this was a very well-recorded track, right? This is great mic technique. Everything's in perfect phase. The room sounds really good. The drum kit sounds really good. This is no knock on the drummer or the kit they were using or the engineer, how they mic'd it up, the microphones they used, the room. This is just something that exists in like every drum kit almost. So what I don't want is I don't want any bottom end from the kick drum in these overheads. So we're gonna high pass that. We're gonna go right up to this. You see right here, this that's the thump of the snare drum. So we're gonna go right under that and fairly steep. Okay, now this boxiness right here, 450 hertz. So no spectral dynamics on this one. We're just gonna hold option and pull down, and that gives you the regular dynamics. We're gonna go up to a 24 dB per octave. We're gonna make this super narrow and pull this way down. Now, what we want to do is we want to speed this attack all the way up because we want to catch the snare drum for this. I don't even think we need to do anything with the attack because it's doing a great job catching just the snare drum. So now this thump, what I want to do is hold option and push up, click and push up. So we're using its expansion on this. We're gonna widen this up to a 24 dB per octave. Don't ask me why I like 24 dB. It just feels good to me for any sort of stuff like this. All right, now listen to the difference in that snare drum as I bypass and unbypass this. Bypassed. That, to me, is so much better, and we didn't do any of that with EQ. We got a little bit of a high shelf here, sure, but like all of that change in the tone of the snare drum is with dynamics. And this keeps all the warmth in the cymbals, but it also enhances the thud of the snare drum and gets rid of the boxiness of the snare drum. Let's go over here to like where the crashes, where the song was really getting going here towards the end. Let's tweak these cymbals a little bit. Love it. Okay, now the next thing that I do is I add some saturation into this because I like rolling off the top end. You can use whatever you like. I love this. Tube 3 has been a really good one. Lately, though, I've been absolutely in love with the UAD Oxide. The UAD Oxide tape, I really, really like this one. So that's without anything. Like, that's just so much better to me. So if we solo the rest of the drums here, and then we're gonna have to back down the volume on this overhead here. Here is what it sounds like blended in. Thick as all get out. So I will, of course, put links to this FabFilter Pro Q4 in the description down below. If you use that link, helps the channel out just a little bit, costs you absolutely nothing extra. And there's links down below to every single other thing that I use, and those links all go to Sweetwater. So I just want to thank Sweetwater for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you guys for using those links. Anytime you need to purchase anything, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any one of the links, purchase anything that you need, and when you do that, it doesn't cost you anything. But it really helps me out, helps me keep making videos like this. So thanks to you guys for using those links. Thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. To me, this is a game changer. Like I know I say that word a lot, and a lot of you guys give me grief for it, which is kind of becoming a running joke. To me, this is a game changer. To set stuff up this way, it solves all of my issues with every single overhead that I ever work on. And I hope that this helped you. I hope this helps you make better music. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.